The Volkswagen Passat has received several upgrades. What are those all about? A full review here on the VW Passat Facelift, on Autogefuehl, your #1 resource for in-depth car reviews and your #1 community to discuss cars, with Thomas, an exterior, interior and the driving experience. For example, we also have a Passat Alltrack here today for you. We will also take you on a tour with the updated GTE, and we will also compare different versions for you, not only the off-roady Alltrack but also the sporty RLine, and a comparison petrol engine versus diesel in driving. In Full HD, full screen and full length, let's go! In the front you can see, yeah, it's a facelift, therefore the face has been lifted, literally. You can see there's a new headlamp design overall, and this is more one unit here also together with the front grille. And also on the technology side, those headlamps standard now come with full LED lamps. Optional, you can also upgrade it to a matrix LED light. It has 44 individual LEDs then for a special high beam function. And here the Alltrack, this is a so-called soft off-roader version, also has this contrasting off-road kit in the lower part and also sits a little bit higher, overall a 17 centimeter ground clearance than for the Alltrack. Again, you know, for some soft off-road situations, or if you just prefer this visual. Very interesting right here, you see those cascading turning indicators now. You know that also from some Audi models. This adds a lot more, you know, drama to the whole turning process. 4,77 m, 15'6" or 188 inches is the length of the Passat, and that has remained the same. The platform is of course the same, still the MQB platform, the transverse building mount platform at Volkswagen. It's just that some designs have changed here in the side profile. For example, you get new rim style, so new wheels, 17 to 19 inch, those ones are 18 inch. Here also the Alltrack with the special badge, then those plastic crossover wheel arches and the grey contrast in the lower part, and I think it does very well suit the vehicle. Same I already thought with the A4 Allroad, for example. I think this crossover style just works with those mid-size estates. Or what's your take on that? Other than that, you got roof rails here also for the normal variant, and you can see that this Alltrack here is a little bit higher. But as I said earlier, everything we tell you today counts for all of the Passat EU versions, so sedan, the variant, the estate, Alltrack, GTE and so on. So everything we tell you today, besides the ground clearance for this one here, will be all the same as for all of the updates. So think still a rather classic and elegant look, here also with the dropping line at the height of the door handles. Maybe it doesn't need to be that green color, but you know, is it maybe German racing green or something? I don't know. What do you think? And now to the rear perspective. The change with the facelift are those tail lamps right there with the new LED structure. I'll also soon give you a close-up where I hit the brake actually, that you can see that it changes when you hit the brakes. It's very interesting. The Alltrack here also has some contrast in the lower part, and yeah, you can see some fake exhaust right here because the real exhausts are right underneath too. Actually for this very big petrol variant we have here today, but the rest of the form has not been touched. It's a typical hatch ending here for the variant. Of course there will still be the sedan that looks a little bit different, especially here from the rear. Well, you've seen, not sure how can you pick it up on camera, we made that car a little bit dirty here with soft off-roading, but that's also what the Alltrack is for. So when you hit the brakes, you can see how the rear lamps then change. It's a very interesting effect indeed. And don't forget also here to show you how the indicator looks like in the rear. So what do we have here under the hood? Today the top petrol engine for you, 2-liter TSI, 272 horsepower. That's of course massive for this vehicle, but there's also one available with 190 horsepower, or the smaller one, 1.5 TSI with 150 horsepower. And on the diesel side, 2-liter TDI, 240, 190 or 150 horsepower. The latter one, the new TDI Evo, new generation. And 1.6 TDI with 120 horsepower. And then there's also an upgrade for the GTE, 1.4 TSI with 218 horsepower system output, 55 kilometers of pure electric range with 13 kilowatt-hour batteries. So, especially an upgrade for the GTE that is very interesting. The other engines have been updated as for the emissions and so on, for the particulate filters, for example. And then also with this, somewhat new TDI version, the one Evo version, very, very interesting to test. But this one here, let's see how is the minimum consumption we can get, and also how is the edger driving performance of that one here. And now we're switching here to the RLine, whereas the Alltrack has this off-roader look. This one here with a sporty accentuation, also with a special edition here today with some more dark accentuations. And this color here is called Moonstone, but also other colors available for the RLine package. They have rearranged the whole trim line, so the RLine then goes on top of the 3 different trims you can basically pick. Very interesting. Also with black wheels here, we'll go into the details of all the different elements of the RLine. In the front of the Passat RLine Special Edition, you can find the corresponding badge, but also a lot of dark contrasts here that makes this sporty look, and also the normal ground clearance, unlike with the Alltrack that is a little bit higher. The headlamps here also, again with the normal facelift LED standard. And now those ones here are also the top trim headlamps, the so-called Matrix LED, and they also have a new brand name for it. Also stands at the side, they call it IQ Light now. Side profile of the Passat RLine. You can see the dropping line here at the height of the door handle, especially in this very color. And we got those top 19-inch wheels, and they are all blacked out here, so this more aggressive styling, and also shiny black frames all around the windows. So do you like it when the Passat has this sporty styling? The Passat Facelift not only changed the braking light signature, it also added this Passat lettering right there, so this looks a little more sophisticated then. And the RLine comes with a black contrast in the lower part, and whoa, what do we have here? So in this case, those fake exhaust visual elements are a special dual fake exhaust. And just to be very precise, that everything is in black right here at the front grille, and also those shiny black frames around the windows together with the black roof. This is not special to the RLine in general, but only to the RLine Special Edition, 2000 pieces limited edition. Well, otherwise, if you would just pop up an RLine to a normal Passat trim, then you would get the frames as they are in that special trim, for example, chrome, or also the normal black rubber style. Well, I think they should make this special edition the normal RLine, because with the shiny black frames and also with those elements there in the front, this is how the RLine should really look like for the Passat and not only for the special edition. Or what's your take on that? And as promised, we also have a GTE for you. First of all, you see more colors of the car that are available also for different trim versions. And the GTE here, the PHEV, the plug-in hybrid vehicle with an updated battery, will fill you in also with the details. So the Passat GTE gets all of the facelift changes that all Passat versions get. For example, with a little bit different front right here, integrated headlamps, full LED, optional matrix LED, but just that the daytime running light, as in the previous pre-facelift version, is also at the lower part. This is, so to say, a unique point for the GTE models. The Golf also has that. And in the front, you can already charge that new 13 kilowatt-hour battery. So when you close the vehicle and open it, and then open it twice, so to say, then this front part is unlocked and you can open it with pressing it, and then we have the charging possibility right here for a Type 2. And well, it doesn't matter so much with the PHEVs about the charging time, because also a normal household plug will also do just fine, and it's also full in a couple of hours. So here the Passat GTE features a 1.4 liter turbo petrol engine TSI, which is not available anymore as a single combustion engine in the lineup, but here together with the electric drivetrain. All the orange elements you see, total system horsepower output 218 horsepower, and they promise 55 kilometers of pure electric range now. Well, realistically rather 40 kilometers plus. But very interesting, since they have this battery upgrade now, a higher electric range definitely given. And you can say it's maybe a little bit complicated to have both systems to carry around everything all the time. On the other hand, it is maybe a good transition if you just charge with a household plug, for example, and sometimes you can charge, sometimes not. Or if you can commute pure electric during the week and have some longer trips on the weekend or holiday trips, then you can use the combustion engine. And you always have the possibility of recuperation, for example, when you're going downhill, as we are in those vineyards here in Germany today. So this is also a very nice use for that vehicle. So this is a white Passat variant or Estate, and it looks just normal as any other Passat Estate, just that it has this GTE badge right here. Blue is the GTE color, whereas red would be the GTI color for the petrol sporty cars. 18-inch rims in this case. With this grey design, I think it also works quite well as a contrast to the white one here. And those ones here, the chrome frames around the windows, that I think looks pretty elegant, doesn't it? And in the rear, the GTE looks just like any other version of the Passat. GTE badge right there. Yes, that's the only thing that indicates it. Other than that, the facelift here with the new tail lamp design. And that's it, the Passat lettering that has changed with the facelift, but all the same here with the GTE. The car key here with a slide upgrade, so it's not that you push this button then it flips out. If you need the manual key at some point for like in special emergency situations, I don't know, it's in the top right there. But other than that, you usually just open and close like this, or with the keyless entry. It's also available. Put your hand on the outside here to close the car, then you can see the mirrors also flip in here with a nice contrasting aluminum color cover, or this aluminum style. Oh, very, very nice integration here, really, slim then. And put your hand on the inside to open it again. Then the door closing sound test. Yeah, pretty very solid, that's nice. Then inside of the doors, soft touch here, but we can expect that at that price point. Then this special style here, this is new, looks like, you know, like a shiny dark wood style somewhat. The inside, then here's some leatherette and also some soft touch materials. There's a bright interior styling in this case. You can also pick different ones. Then audio optional sound system with a quite decent sound. And then we can see some changes also right there. For example, there's a completely new steering wheel for all of the Passats. It was introduced this style with the T-Cross, here with a more angular styling right here. Reminds us a little bit of the Hofmeister Knick or Hofmeister Kink from BMW, very interesting. Perforated sides here, and the Alltrack has a special badge then in the lower part of the steering wheel. Soon more also to those digital instruments. First of all, there are new seating materials available. This one, however, is the classic old animal skin full spec, but there are new fabrics in Alcantara also available here for the Passat Facelift. This one is also the so-called Ergo Comfort seat. Again, as I said, it's also available in materials where you do not stick to the seat in summertime as it is right now, for example. But the seat form itself is quite comfortable. I can also take a seat right here. I always get the question, you know, you 1m86 or 6'1". What about cars for taller people? And the Passat is really a very suitable car for taller people. Also, if you compare other mid-size segment cars, for example, a Mercedes C-Class is way smaller here in the front than this one here. So from all the mid-size segment cars, I think the Passat is especially suitable if you're very tall. See here, if I put the seat in the lowest position, I still have plenty of headroom left. You can also go for a panoramic roof, then you will have a little bit less headroom, but still enough. Steering wheel can be adjusted far in reach and height. And also, you know, from the whole room you have, like in this area, is not narrow at all. So I really like that, and it also contributes here to this spacious travel feeling we have in this vehicle. And by the way, those Ergo Comfort seats, they also have a massage function right here. But I'm not a fan of it because it rather here stresses this whole area. It's not like a more sophisticated system where single dots are being operated. It's more like the whole area moves, and that's also something where I can say you can also live without that. So it's really interesting what they did here with the interior. In general, the Passat has this horizontal stress here also, soft touch dashboard, then those new decor elements also nicely done. I like it also with the split here, dark on the top part that you don't have any reflections, bright in the lower part that looks a little bit nicer and brighter. And then, for example, you can see the analog clock. That one is gone. There's just this Passat badge here now. Not really sure what's the intention of that. I mean, it looks quite nice and so on, but the analog clock was also just fine. Or wasn't it? I'm not sure. Then analog instruments, it starts. Optional 11.7-inch new digital instruments right there. There's also an optional head-up display, but in this separate plastic glass layer. You're going to take a look at this new steering wheel. I really like the styling, also with a heating function available, and soon also a little bit more details to those assistance systems, because on the left side you can activate the cruise control, the adaptive one, or also this new special assist. I will talk more about that when we drive the car. Right side then to change something in the instruments, or then again the steering wheel heating. With those digital instruments you're pretty flexible. For example, check the assistance systems. You can also have the map here in the middle, and then you can also change the view, for example, to make it all the way with the map. That's also very interesting. You can still see the speed. This is a very interesting option why you should maybe go with those. But then again, yeah, I mean, analog ones will also do just fine. The head-up display here with a separate plastic glass layer. Then what you can see on the inside is, for example, the speed, loud speed, also some assistance system information and so on. It's good, yeah, not as good at those proper head-up displays where they project it directly into a windscreen, but it's already nice to have. So here you start with a 6.5-inch, optional an 8-inch, a little bigger, and this one here is the biggest 9.2-inch. The 8-inch screen already receives this very software here with the MIB3 this electronic building platform, so to say, at Volkswagen. And this one here, the top one, also has this gesture control, but I think we can also easily live without it. So the smaller, the 8-inch, also has knobs here for zooming in and also for the volume. I like that. I would stick with the smaller one. This one here, the optional one, it looks a little bit more fancy. Then you have everything in a capacitive way. CarPlay here now, wireless, finally available. So that's the Bluetooth connection, but you can still also use a cable for a normal CarPlay or Android Auto connection. That's possible. And here also the inductive charging platform. You've seen that message right there. So very interesting as for this aspect. Then the GPS right here. It's very well to use, good responsiveness, and looks pretty fancy too. So that's nice. We are near the River Rhine today in Germany. Quite nice region also to do some car reviews. And then you can have, for example, some vehicle information here with the off-road view for the Alltrack. That's somewhat special here with the degrees of the tires and so a compass and the height actually, 375 meters. That's quite something already. So it's actually quite easy to use, a good overview, but still connect your phone via Bluetooth. That one would also be possible. There's still a manual classic climate unit, so to say. Well, you have the digital screens right there, but I think it's quite good that you can still touch those and it's easier to control it while driving. Then this inductive charging tray, it's also big enough, unlike in the Arteon. And there's a USB-C charger right now in the front. So they went all the way for the USB-C devices now. What's also new with DCC, you can not only go for the preset modes, you can also go to individual and then really fine-tune the DCC. This will be the normal setting, and then there's a span, or the adaptive suspension. This is a preset, and then it varies a little bit, stiffer and less stiff, depending on the situation. But you can fine-tune it really like how you want to have it. I don't know. I mean, it's more playing around. You have more possibilities. Usually, most people leave it in a comfortable area and then go for sport if you want to have some more fun. But maybe you find after a while that like this setting is exactly the one you need. One interesting detail here is the normal back mirror, and it is frameless, therefore pretty elegant. But still, you can have a good look to the rear. Here in the middle part, you can slide this one open and have some adaptive cup holders. They will really eat different sizes of bottles. Then you can put your key, for example, right here, but you also can put it somewhere else, of course. 12-volt power supply. And then under the armrest, there's a new USB-C port, so there's also another USB-C port there, and some more space, for example. There's a cereal bar. So the rear compartment right here, door opens wide enough. Then there's also here a manual shade for the kids, that's available, and also very nice build quality, also soft touch here at the inside of the doors at the rear. And then you can see it's very spacious, you can always see it right there. Only the Skoda Superb, because it's a little bit longer, a little bit more using of space than is better. But here, this is among the best also in this segment. Look at that. This is when I am driving actually. And then there's still plenty of legroom left, even for tall Ls in the rear. It's a good and comfortable seating position here. Also, if you think about the headroom, still no problem, and it will still work even with the panoramic roof as for me. So in the oval position here, you have a lot of free space to move around. That's really cool. You cannot move any bench or something. Here with the seats, you can only flip it completely. There's no angle adjustment also available. What about the middle seat here? Well, there is a middle tunnel because you can also get the all-wheel drive. And you have to put your feet to the side. You sit a little bit higher here in this middle area. It would somehow still work, but it's a little bit stiff as for the bolstering, so not too comfortable here in the middle part, but it would be possible space-wise. Then we have here those cup holders right there. Also move that here as a ski hatch. To have this reach through, that's possible. And then in the lower part we have a separate climate unit if you order that, also with rear seat heating, again an option. In the very lower part you have a USB-C port now with the facelift and a real power supply. But if you think about charging your MacBook there, it's really very hard to fit it right. It's a little bit too narrow in this position there. Let's flip the logo to access the trunk. Electric tailgate. Not so much has been done with the facelift right here. It's already quite good because you can see those square dimensions. You can also fit a replacement tire if you like. Underneath here, that's possible. A clean solution here for the cover because it has some rails to the side, and then you just have to press here to actually move it forward in 2 steps. That's cool. And you have some additional hangers here as a possibility. It's also a nice idea. 12-volt power supply. Then you can actually, when you press this button, you see at the lower part, there will be the towing hook. It's not going all the way, but you can just do it like this. That's pretty cool. And then you can also detach it like this. And then what about the measurements? In the normal length here, it is 1.12 meters, and the normal width is here even a little bit more than a meter in this area. Then you have those small compartments right there, and this is also a nice extra option with this sliding bar here. You can actually, put some things here and then move them further in. Then you have more space available right here. Well, you can also just push this backpack from here to there. This is also possible, but for heavy things that makes sense. For backpack maybe not, but if you have like a heavy toolbox or something, that then can make sense with this solution. Here you can see height-wise, does that still fit with the backpack? Yes, that does indeed still fit. Even if I put it, yeah, that does indeed work, because here the height to the rail is about 47 centimeters, and the overall height then, if you think about loading a bicycle or something, this is 72 centimeters. And then what about flipping the seats? This is a very good solution too, with those levers here, left and right. Here we go, and they flip all the way, unlike in the Audi A4, where this does not happen that way. And here this is a little bit less than 2 meters than to the tall drivers. Of course, would be a little bit more when you have smaller drivers, and then you can load in the middle through an even longer than 2 meters. And last but not least, for example, if you have dogs, you can also get this integrated net here, for example. You can secure them on a top part here each, and then you also have more security, or just for another luggage security if you really load everything to the very, very high top. And then what else is missing? The child safety test when I close the electric tailgate here, and whoa! Again, the same was still in the Tiguan. This is just, they just have too much torque on those systems, so be careful, don't get squished in there. And join me now on the interior of the Passat RLine. The interesting thing is there are some sporty elements like those, checkered aluminum style here at the inside of the doors. Here also then again a soft touch. Here some contrast stitches in white. And they also have a steering wheel with the RLine badge. This again the new facelifted steering wheel with this more, different edge style contrast. Before that it looked a little bit more boring. Again, those deco elements. And the seats are also special. They have more side support, sport seats, and they usually come as standard with Alcantara on the inside. What we would also recommend, this one, the optional animal skin pack, which is worse in the climate functions for summer and also less sustainable. And here the R stitching, and this element here, this is then leather red in this carbon fiber fabric style, so to say. This is here an example of an Alcantara seat taken from a GTE interior. It is not the R-Line seat, but it's somewhat similar. And there you can see the Alcantara surface on the inside. It looks really nice and is also definitely cozier. Well, and what about those sport seats? Are they actually more or less comfortable? And, well, it doesn't make too much of a difference for the very seat form you get. Most of the Passat seats, they are always very comfortable and also suitable for taller people. This is actually no problem. So really satisfied with that. Those one here also come with the electric control. So you can also use that here with the electric lumbar support too. And you can also put the front area a little bit longer or shorter depending on your legs. You can see wireless charging from the smartphone here. The RLine has again this different decor element right here, and well, that the analog clock was removed right here, you can see with the Passat badge, since 6.5, 8-inch and then the top 9.2 inch, this one here has then less space to put the hazard light somewhere, so they put it right there, and probably the clock couldn't be there, so this could also be one of the reasons. As for the rear view camera, you can put in reverse gear and then have it right here with a good resolution, also with the drone view from above. But you can also hit the separate camera button in the lower middle console. Then you have this view here, but from the side, I'm not sure how practical that one is, but it's a little bit bigger than overall. But you have the possibilities if you go for the highest trim for this rear view camera. And you can see they went all the way for USB-C now, here already in the front, but also if we go to the lower middle console, here next to the cup holders, and then under the armrest, again another USB-C port. The rear has the very same style, also with this carbon fiber fabric, and if you would have the Alcantara package, it would also show then grey Alcantara on the inside, and that's really beautiful as a contrast. A lot of legroom and headroom both. 1.86 or 6'1", my size, and this is really comfortable here, and the seat form also doesn't change anything of the legroom you have. So it's a really good travel vehicle also for 4 adults, not exactly for the 5th one, but for 4 it works very well. Now the interior of the GTE, we have some special inlets right here, so elegant design. Then there's a special just to the GTE, this inlet at the steering wheel with the blue accentuation. Other than that, a new facelifted steering wheel. Then those seats here are the ones with Alcantara on the inside and leatherette on the outside. You can also get that for other Passat versions. We just have it here in the GTE, and it's very fitting because those materials are animal-free and also fits the more sustainable electric approach they have here with the GTE. Those are the so-called ergo comfort seats. You can see it right here. Also with a somewhat seat massage function, but they do not work with single dots, but just the whole area that moves. So I think we can also live without that massage function. But those ergo comfort seats in general from the seating form are actually pretty cool. Interior of the GTE with the facelift, they have removed the analog clock, put the hazard light right there with the Passat badge, because here they also made this new big screen, 9.2 inch, yeah, also with some gesture control right there. 8-inch would also be available, and the smallest 6.5, even smaller. The 8 and the 9-inch have the same software. The 8-inch you also have some knobs still, so that might also be a reason to go for that. For example, analog instruments would be normal Passat facelift on the left. Here then option digital instruments or with the GTE, and that also makes sense. With the GTE you have on the left side the battery symbol and the right side the fuel status. And in the middle part you can have whatever. Soon more details to that. New steering wheel with heated steering wheel on the right side button here, optional if you want that. Left side for all the cruise control, which also received an update. Works up to 210 now with the semi-autonomous function, and a new travel assist button, which then also keeps you in the middle of the lane. But it's split with the normal lane changing warning and the active lane change assist. Very interesting. Middle part here, separate climate unit. Like to still have that one separately. Inductive charging platform, if you like that. USB-C, they all put it on USB-C now here, and also under the armrest, another USB-C charge point right there, cup holders, and then special GTE buttons here. If you have the GTE version, you have a GTE button that gives you the maximum boost, so petrol and electric most power at the same time. E mode, when you want to drive only electric, for example in the neighborhood, or the hybrid mode, that is then doing that automatically. So when you accelerate slower, you stay in the E mode, and when you hammer it, it goes also in the petrol engine mode. And on the right side, very interesting, there's this acoustic warning, so to say, because when you drive very slowly, there's these new regulations, especially for blind people, that they can actually hear you, and it's always activated, but you can also deactivate it. Probably not possible anymore in the future, but here it's still possible. Well, the good thing about those digital instruments is that you can also have the GPS map full size. That helps when navigating. Other than that, you also are flexible in different views, and also can have some music info, the Apple CarPlay info, and so on. Everything here in the instruments. You're always pretty flexible, and it's also a very nice visualization. With plug-in hybrid vehicles, the question is always, do you sit differently in the rear, or when you have like a normal car which was made electric and later on, and it's the same seating position, plenty of legroom, plenty of headroom even if you're tall, so the same comfortable position as in all other Passat variants. Let's drive in a more agile way. Let's put it here to the sport mode and give it some of the corners. I deactivated all of the assistant systems, and that together with the sport mode also gives me a little bit better feeling in the steering wheel. So it also is a little bit stiffer to control in the sports mode. And then let's see how the performance is here in the corners. Again, although we have the Alltrack setup here, the car does not shake up too much, especially in here in the sports mode. It's very well suitable for those very even roads we have here. That's pretty cool. And see here, I don't have to steer that much, so the steering input is very progressive, and keep my hands at the steering wheel all the time. And considering it's a front-wheel driven platform, still very good handling. I mean, here in this case, of course, an all-wheel drive, and you can only get the power to the ground that well because this Alltyack clutch transports also some power from front to the rear axle. Maximum distribution of 50-50. It will still be somewhat front-wheel biased, yes, but in most situations that won't play a major role then for that vehicle here. The good thing is really that it has very nice handling. This MQB platform also guarantees enough chassis stiffness, and it is a comfortable cruiser, but it is actually still quite some fun also to steer it here through those corners. And you can see how fast I could catch up to the car in front of us. I wasn't even going fast, at least what I felt. So, but that was still pretty cool. So, a nice ride here, still also with Passat Alltrack. So, if you think about, should I go for the higher variant because it's maybe not sporty enough for me or something, it's actually no problem, especially if you have then the dynamic chassis control here. So that's a little bit too boring sticking behind that one. It's always like this one. So we can turn around here, and then we can also go uphill. That's also good then for another engine performance test. This is the rear view camera with a nice resolution, also with the drone view from above. So now we're still in that sport mode. Let's go uphill now. That's picking up speed quite nicely. Yeah, that's cool. I mean, it's a business and or family estate here, and it's really a lot of fun to drive here, especially because this mid-size segment is always a good compromise, So recently also moved some bigger cars here up those hills, and this one here is actually more fun, and really how smooth the steering input is and the overall handling is really cool. So The Passat sometimes doesn't look that sporty, but you know, yeah, it's no rear-wheel driven car, yes, all true, but the driving dynamics here and the agility, and still, we are in the Alltrack even. Very, very nice ride and handling. Well, we're driving the Alltrack, so why not showing some soft off-roading? And here we do have that. The DCC is set on comfort mode, and therefore, still, although it's rough terrain, it's actually a quite nice ride and giving me a lot of confidence. So this is also what this car is meant to do, some soft off-roading. That's about this, you know, but pretty nice. And now to some Autobahn driving and focus on assistance systems, because that one have been upgraded majorly. Interesting that the new camera can not only see different lines on the road, but also when there's, for example, a contrast between grass and tarmac. This is also pretty helpful when they are, you know, when the lines are not that well done. And here with a separate column here, I can go into the menu and activate or deactivate the lane assist. That's a helpful menu. And then I can set the adaptive cruise control. So, and activate that one here with the top button. And then I can set it here, and also the different speeds and so on. So that's pretty helpful. So then, yeah, lane assist activated. Well, and this way, distance being kept, the car in front of me, and the lane assist is basically when I'm really stepping over the lane unintentionally or so, that the car brings me back to the lane. So for example, I'm here, there it is. So of course you should keep your hands on the steering wheel all the time. And with the Volkswagen Touareg, they had it a little bit too sensitive, this automatic lane keeping, and so they decided to split both systems. So this is the lane keeping assist, and then the lower button here is the travel assist. And that one is the more proactive one, and I think it's a good decision to split that. So to split that somewhat, because that really helps you. Change the view here again. So that really helps you, because here now the car is being kept in the middle of the lane. Again, it's really thought out that you keep your hands at the steering wheel, and this is done before I get off the lane. The car is being centralized. And again, as I said, with the Touareg so far, it was that, especially in Autobahn corners, when you drove a little bit faster, it was a little bit nervous at the steering wheel. They corrected that already a little bit for the Touareg with a software upgrade. But here it's even better done. And even better than that, you have the chance to pick the system. So if you at some point think, oh, that's a little bit annoying for me, then you can deactivate that system and just have the AC with the emergency lane keeping assist. So a very interesting choice as for that one. And this, usually it's really bad when you have a trap. That's very strange. I want to change the lane now or what? So here now the next traffic jam. And this is really good also again to test the systems here. How will it actually, the hell? So left or right now? Come on. Yeah. About that. So here now, let's activate everything, also the travel assist and the adaptive cruise control, and let's see what the car does. So it is being kept in the middle of the lane here as well. For the emergency corridor, that's not good. So I know only there's some, like the newest upgrade for the Distronic by Mercedes. It does actually recognize if you're left or right, and then moves a little bit to the side for the emergency corridor. But that's the only system doing that so far. Here the other systems, they're keeping the car in the middle of the lane. And you can see here, steering is done, acceleration is also done, and I really hope we come to a standstill at some point. That would be actually good in this case, to see how the car is proceeding then or not. Here, even if we're driving at slower speed, it says take over steering. This is at the moment how the regulation is, and the manufacturers also have to take over this special regulation to do that. No, stand still? Yeah, it seems to be, yeah. So, no, come on, stop. Well, yeah, we are still 2 kilometers now, but you can see car is accelerating on its own again. And then, you should keep your hands on the steering wheel still, otherwise the car is saying, oh, don't do that. And he, in this case, also new with the facelift, done with the capacitive function of the steering. So it's not that you can cheat it with putting like a Coke bottle in here. That, there are some videos about that, where you can then cheat the car that it thinks, oh, someone is still steering. This is now like with the button you touch, the steering wheel knows when you're touching it or not. And this is also, another upgrade they have integrated right here. Now we're coming to a standstill, and I'm just interested if the car is continuing on its own again, or if I need to push the throttle, or, well, the engine started, but yeah. So I can either press resume here on the steering wheel, or just a short click on the throttle, and then it continues right again. The engine, yes, starts itself, but it doesn't. It's maybe also a safety feature that, when you don't really know it, and then the car would start itself. So there's also like a philosophic discussion, you can say. Yeah, very interesting how they upgrade the systems. Again, the new camera, that one is, for example, very important. Also, then the autonomous emergency brake assistant equipment, recognizes pedestrians and even now better cyclists, for example. That's also a very important feature. Yeah, and I think that's it so far, or it's enough for you with the traffic jam here. Let's speed it a little bit more up on the Autobahn here. Just to tell you about the consumption, because we're cruising at the moment, you can get a minimum of 6 liters on 1 kilometers, 39 mpg US, 47 mpg UK. That's great. If you just cruise control 80 to 100 kilometers on the motorway and that's it, that's really very decent. Of course, will be higher when you use more of that power, because here, this one here, we put it to the S shifting mode, then it will also go back a gear. You can also use the shifting pedals to shift back even further. And then we can check out the acceleration here from 100 to, let's see. And that's 140. So that went quite quickly from this 2-liter turbo engine. I mean, 272 horsepower in here, the top spec for this vehicle. And that, of course, more than enough. So also at higher speeds, you still got a lot of power left. The diesel versions will also have a lot of torque. This is also very useful for accelerating when you're already at higher speeds. The petrols will be a little bit more fun, especially when you're more in those lower speed regions, because they're a little bit more spontaneous. But most of the time it's really about in which gear you are in, because the normal automatic gearboxes here, the dual clutch transmissions, in the normal D driving mode, they tend to shift up quite early for fuel savings then, of course. There are also different driving modes available. I'm at the moment in normal driving mode. And then there's, for example, also comfort. That sets the DCC, the dynamic chassis control, which is an option for the Passat, still an option. And it sets it, to a more comfortable level, but it always adjusts to the situation. So this DCC, the adaptive suspension, is always, between a little bit stiffer, a little bit softer, depending on the ground situation at the moment. But then when you set a driving mode, you just predefine a certain span. That's very interesting as for this system, and very good as well. And here in the comfort mode, this is what you would usually probably prefer for some nice cruising and so on, and it's really good. So the suspension here is awesome, and it also works well together with the Passat Alltrack, which is a little bit higher. You feel that it's more, a little bit crossover-ish. Not exactly an SUV feeling, but not also as low as you would have in a normal passenger car. So just a little notch. Then we can also go to the sport mode and accelerate it out, because this one here already gives you again this S shifting mode. The virtual instruments also go to a red background to have a sportier tone. That's also a very nice feature, I think, because you've maybe seen here with the Eco mode, it gets blue, Comfort mode gets yellow, Normal mode is also blue, and Sport is then red. And then let's see if we can get a safe spot to enter on the left lane. German Autobahn is always racing. Here, let's go. That's 150 kilometers. So again, also the sound is actually quite decent. Also the noise insulation is very good. I don't have to raise my voice that much. That's always has been the case with the new Passat in general. Hasn't changed here with the facelift. It was already at a very good level. I also keep track of everything in the head-up display, which is not projected directly into the windscreen, but on this separate layer. And Holger and I were discussing it earlier, what's the pro and what's the con of that. So those simpler systems, like that one here, they don't project in your real line of sight, a little bit lower due to the separate layer. And then you also have the separate plastic glass layer, which is also somewhat disturbing your view just a little bit, rating it against a proper projection system. I guess for that price you pay here, you could already have expected a true head-up display. Yet again, the platform is not suitable for that yet, but that one will be rather with the all-new generation then, which will be introduced with the new Volkswagen Golf. And there will be this new MQB generation that will also feature a full head-up display. We can expect that. So far, one of the most popular Autobahn vehicles here, the Volkswagen Passat. It is the company car number one, so to say. And you can really understand that because it's really relaxing here to drive it on the motorway. Good from noise insulation. Power really depends on the engine you pick. And especially with the DCC, it adds a lot more comfort. There's always the question with cars, should you go for the adaptive suspension, yes or no? And with those Volkswagen vehicles, definitely yes. That makes a big difference. The base suspensions are already quite good, but the DCC definitely adds more comfort. And then also this possibility to switch it around a little bit from comfort to normal mode. I've shown you earlier that we have this individual setting as well, where we can change it in a very fine-tuned way. But I would not necessarily do that while driving, so that's why you also have a separate key and can set this presets. And usually those presets are also just fine. They're enough to use. I also still like it that we have this classic climate control. So when I say, just a little bit colder, then I just turn it 0.5 degrees or something, and then that's it. So that's to me the easiest solution. In some of the new cars where everything went into the touchscreen, that's maybe nice then for getting everything cleaned up in the interior and so on, but it's not really user-friendly while driving. That's one of the 911 convertible right there. So we go here once more. So by the way, when we're in the sport mode, get a stiffer feedback then from the suspension, so everything is a little bit stronger than sportier and so on. Here is also the blind spot monitor. So very well placed, also looks very sophisticated with those contrasting mirror caps. So in the sport mode, it's a little bit more fun to drive then, because you get this better feedback then. Even here with the Alltrack. So when you ask me, does this car feel way less sporty than in the Alltrack version? Well, not necessarily if you pick the DCC in here and set to the sport mode, and then you can even that out a little bit. Of course, a normal Passat, which is a little bit lower, will have a little bit lower center of gravity and will be driving a bit sportier, but it's not a huge difference. However, I really like those crossover styles that you have, some more ground clearance, sit a little bit higher. Also like an E-Class all-terrain or the Audi A4 or A6 all-road. I think that concept usually works pretty well. I think it's quite nice. So now back to some assistance systems here. The adaptive cruise control really keeps the distance very well, and it also keeps in the lane. See, like here, don't do that at home, kids. So just showing you how it works. Then the system is always saying like, yeah, you know, something is going wrong. If I would continue on doing that, the car would also give me some warning signals that I should keep my hands on the steering wheel. But I just want to show you that the system actually works. And again, as I said, also up to really high speeds. Yeah, this upgrade is rather a German thing because nowhere else you can drive that fast on the motorway. And again, only when the traffic is allowing it. At the moment, not doing anything with the throttle. So this distance here is being kept, speed is being reduced. Acceleration. Plop, that was already 80. So it was a 0 to 80 kilometers acceleration. Here now with the 2-liter TDI bi-turbo with 240 horsepower. And if you compare that one to the very strongest petrol engine in the lineup for the Passat, the 2-liter TSI with 272 horsepower, there's an acceleration difference of a half of a second. So the petrol is half a second faster in the 0 to 100 kilometers or 62 miles an hour acceleration. That's very interesting. So they both come somewhat close with 5.8 and 6.3 seconds for the variant, for the Estate. In the Estate, they are a little bit less performant than in the sedan. The sedan has, you know, a little bit lower center of gravity and a little bit less weight because less chassis is being used, so to say, from the building form. So this is the same with some, you know, a lot of other models. The sedans are actually the sportier ones, even though they not always look that sporty. However, very interesting. So a very good punch you get here from the top diesel. I have already driven it once in the Volkswagen Tiguan. That was also very interesting. And also the Skoda Kodiaq RS is using the very same engine. And you might have picked up the sound. I think for a diesel, it really sounds quite nice. And, you know, that can also make sense in the consumption way. I'll test it out later. We'll now go on the motorway and tell you more about that. And then I also reset the consumption meter and see what we can score as minimum consumption if we just think about what would you have as a fuel consumption when you just cruise it on the motorway and try to be more efficient. First of all, more about the performance. Now getting on the motorway. Oh, that guy will pull us out if we get stuck somewhere or so. I mean, it's a new engine. Shouldn't be anything wrong with that, right? Well, people have had that with new cars in general, but of course it doesn't happen that much. That's good. Here also with a nice progressive steering. I like that. You have a good feeling in the steering wheel and you don't have to turn the steering that much. The car feels also pretty agile. It's also equipped with the DCC, the dynamic chassis control here. I'm in the sport mode, that gives me a little bit more feedback from the suspension. You can get a base suspension, you can get a sports suspension. That is then the base suspension is set a little bit lower. The DCC is also always set a little bit lower, but since it's adaptive, it's still more comfortable in the base suspension, at least when you're in the comfort in the normal mode. In the sport mode then, of course, it's a little bit stiffer, but that's also then intended. But still, even in the sport mode, it's quite comfortable. You know, again, you feel this torque from the diesel engine. It really has a lot of performance, and you know, I'm not even sure. I mean, from the low RPM regions, the petrol feels sportier and more responsive. But especially if you already are on speed somewhat, then the diesel even feels sportier than the petrol engine because it just has more torque. Let's floor it out. Here we're at 150 kilometers already. And again, the car is pretty sunny, although it's quite windy outside and the tarmac is a little bit rough and so on. So the diesel here is actually a quite good pick. They also have the SCR cleaning, so that one almost eliminates the NOx emissions. Yeah, I mean, they had really a lot of problems and so much stuff has gone wrong with the diesel scandal. But you know, the good thing about those scandals is that after that, things are usually better. Yeah, and that's what we also have here then at the moment. So great performance from this diesel, and also power-wise, it's really fun to drive. So it's one of those cars where you say that maybe the diesel could even be a more performance solution in this case. And especially in Europe, people still pick it mainly because of the fuel consumption. So what about that? Let's reset the consumption meter. Then we can activate the ACC, the adaptive cruise control, one of the very good options you can go for. And now we're just about 120 kilometers an hour, and we just have it on cruise control and see what that one brings us to. I found it very interesting that they must have been working on the petrol engine as well, because we had quite low consumption with the petrol engine of the Passat here, between 6 and 8 liters in 1 kilometers. And that's usually a little bit higher if you all think about 2-liter TSI when we drive it in a Golf GTI or something like that. So very interesting as for this aspect. You can of course score lower consumption figures with the diesel. And let's just see. Oh, by the way, the cruise control with the higher spec is picking up that the speed has changed, and then it's also adaptive. So this is also the so-called predictive cruise control. It knows actually what's coming ahead by map data, and then comparing it also with camera data, and then also adapting to the speed when new traffic signs are being realized. So, and when we just have it here on the cruise control, it already starts again at about 6 liters in 1 kilometers, and that's again quite decent, but that makes me even wonder why we could score so low consumption figures with the petrol engine in our Alltrack test. That was even more astonishing. And again, Passat scores very well with this sovereign ride, confidence, calmness, especially here one of the best motorway vehicles. Suspension is the same as in our test with the Alltrack. And the question is, when I'm having the normal DCC here now and compare it to a little bit higher ride of the Passat Alltrack, do we really feel that? Holger, what do you think? Do you feel any difference to driving like the Passat Alltrack, which was a little bit higher?
No.
Holger says no, as a co-driver. So I think it's always very important to ask also the co-driver then, know what he or she is feeling about that.
It's a difference 20 millimeters.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a little bit, but if someone would say, like, close your eyes now and tell me if you are driving in the Alltrack and normal, maybe a little bit, just little. But since the Alltrack suspension with the DCC also is really good adaptive, not shaking up too much, it's not such a big difference in driving. Again, here in sport mode, a little bit more feedback from suspension, steering a little bit stiffer. If we go to the normal mode, it's a little bit softer from suspension. You maybe also see it on camera, shakes a little bit more, and the steering is lighter. And the interesting thing is, in the individual mode, you can, for example, say, I want a soft suspension, but I want more feedback from the steering and make that one stiffer. So that's also very interesting. So consumption here at 6 liters in 1 kilometers, that would be in the mid 30 mpg US, like 35, 36 mpg US regions, and more than 40 mpg UK. So that's really good figures, almost 50 mpg UK. So you can definitely live with that. Then you might ask yourself, what's then the big difference in fuel consumption, diesel and petrol engine here? First of all, the petrol scored very well astonishingly well. This one was kind of expected here now with the diesel. But the difference is when you hammer the petrol engine, the fuel consumption will go way up. And when you hammer the diesel engine, it will still go up, but not in this wide span as it would do with the petrol engine. So that's the difference we've already had with a lot of different cars where we compared petrol and diesel engine. So if you go for the RLine with this visual pack, we could definitely recommend also to go for the DCC, not to pick the RLine suspension or the so-called sport suspension, because the ride might be a little bit too stiff then. So either stick with the base suspension, save money, or then directly go with the DCC and have this, variety as a choice, and also profit from this adaptive suspension that always, adapts to the situation, no matter if you've set it as a preset a little bit stiffer or a little bit softer. Very interesting. And here now we can also see that the consumption when we have just a cruise control goes even below 6 liters. So an average difference between the diesel and the petrol engine here will end up about 1 to 2, probably 2 liters or more kilometers in favor of the diesel. But then again, to me the biggest point is when you really hammer it, then the diesel will have an even better advantage. However, it will only pay off if you're driving a lot of kilometers per year. Then the diesel will make sense. If you're not that a frequent driver and just like doing the 10,000 kilometers a year or something, then the petrol will also be just fine, even more economic for your pocket. So that's about the economic and consumption figures. Let's see if we can get into some more performance once more. Blind spot monitor was also flashing here in the side mirrors. That's again a nice option to have. And I also want to test with this vehicle shortly what about the new assistant systems. So first of all, already talked about the cruise control, and then there's also the so-called travel assist. And let's test it here once more again, because the travel assist really keeps me in the middle of the lane. Thought that I keep my hands on the steering wheel, and since this one is the new capacitive steering wheel, I am also obliged to do so, otherwise the car would realize, even if I just take one hand off. And this travel assist already works in advance a little bit before I really, go over the side. But sometimes it's also getting deactivated, so I have to see always that it's actually activated, that this situation is suitable for that. So cruise control on the upper part, then the travel assist on the lower part, and then you see a special symbol for that. Now the road is changing a little bit, see here, and then car is keeping me inside the lane. So pretty interesting, those new assistance systems. And you can increase or decrease the speed here just with your left thumb right there. And here now new traffic sign on, even those digital traffic signs above are picked up by the camera. Now it tells me 120 is new, and here it tells me now 100 ahead. This is now from the map data. It's a good example, very interesting. The first data was from the camera. Well, I think I have to go up. I missed it now, but I'll just take the next one. So it was very interesting because first the camera was seeing, this is 120 up there, and then the map data was telling me there's another speed limit ahead, and then adapting the speed. Now it realizes this famous German unlimited speed sign, there's unlimited speed again. And even if we are, for example, in the normal mode, we can go to the shifting mode of S, and then we can have a sport air shifting, or also shift back ourselves, and then throw it out once more with the diesel here. Yeah, really good speed. Holger is also satisfied with the diesel here. So Holger, your pick, diesel or petrol?
Pick this one, really.
Holger would pick it. Yeah, we're both actually quite. We're not like the biggest diesel fans overall, but having driven the petrol and the diesel, I think this one makes a very good impression indeed.
It's more fun to drive.
Yeah, even Holger says more fun to drive just as a co-driver. Very interesting. We are not in the Alltrack now as we've driven in the other test, so this one might be a little bit more agile from the handling, but we also put the Alltrack to like serpentine roads, and that was also very sporty. So it's indeed a little bit more about the engine here indeed. So interesting finding. driving the Passat GTE. It's very interesting because at startup here, you hear nothing. You just put in the gear after you started the car. It's all silent, just as you know it from a pure electric vehicle. And that's of course pretty cool, especially when you're in your neighborhood and going front and back, searching for a parking spot or so on. Now, the combustion engine was activated because we also have the AC running. So the electric consumers are also playing a role in when the combustion engine is being activated. And when we're going downhill, for example, it tends to shut off then and also use the recuperation. You can also see it in the instruments then. There's this charge meter. But you can also force it. If I go from this E mode here, and this, so it says function is currently unavailable. Probably again because of the AC. It's pretty warm outside, 25 degrees at the moment. We have set it to 20 degrees and let's just try it. Let's switch off the AC. See if that one was the stuff that is... Yes. Now we can go to the E mode and then we are driving electric only. For example, not to annoy those cyclists here at the moment. So, and now we continue just in the electric drive mode. At least this one then is predominantly active. I see still that the RPMs from the engines are running. That's interesting. So sometimes it seems that you cannot decide, even though if you go to this drive electric mode. That's strange, isn't it? So when I hit the brakes, we're still on the RPMs. Very interesting. So this has, for example, changed when we were driving earlier. I think when the car is cooler itself, then it might also make a difference. So I'll turn on the AC because, just because you're driving in a plug-in hybrid vehicle doesn't mean that you are not allowed to use the AC or something. This one will still be very important. So there's also a GTE mode. And the GTE mode, that one gives the maximum boost for the best acceleration. I'll show you that as soon as we can accelerate it a little bit more. Other than that, if you stay in the hybrid or in the E mode, obviously it doesn't make the biggest difference overall. It's rather about what situation the car finds at the moment. All the general driving features of the Passat, this very confident and calm ride, the agile driving handling, although it's not the smallest vehicle, this is the same all with the GTE, doesn't change it. We also have the DCC here, the dynamic chassis control, which is the adaptive suspension. That's pretty cool. We're in the normal mode at the moment, but you can also go, for example, to a sport mode to have a stiffer suspension. And in general, it adapts always according to the situation. And the facelift is more about the assistance systems that have been changed. That is definitely a very interesting aspect. And driving with the small petrol engine here is still fun because you have this electric boost. Charge, again here when I'm hitting the brakes. So when I'm going on the brakes, there's first recuperation. Then when I need more braking power, then also the normal brakes are being applied. When you go off the throttle, it's rather rolling. That's how it's set to be. And there now also the normal combustion engine shut off. Those ones here are still the shifting pedals. They do not have anything to do with the recuperation. It's for the normal shifting process. Also interesting. Let's see now. At the moment we're in the hybrid mode and still was shutting off the combustion engine. So it also does that automatically. Yeah, so I think it's not the biggest difference. And also with the GTE mode, when you floor it out, you also get power from the car, from both engines. So yeah, you can either play around with those modes if you like, but most of the time the car also does the job automatically. And now we are rolling all electrically, so to say. Now even getting some recuperation, and you can really enjoy the silence. Whereas from the outside, when you hit a speed of over 30 kilometers an hour, or like over 50 miles an hour, the tire rolling noise will be more significant than anything that comes from the combustion engine, unless you have like a true performance sports car or something. Now from the inside, you still feel a difference to a higher speed, like to about 70 kilometers an hour, 40 miles an hour, 45 miles an hour. Still, the electric vehicles or the plug-in hybrid vehicles, when they are in the all-electric mode, are still more silent from the inside experience. That also fits somehow to this cruising attitude of the Passat, although, as I said, it's definitely fun to drive it. Here, the progressive steering feeling and so on, it's really cool with the GTE also, and it gives you a very, very good and precise driving experience. Even more so in the sport mode then, with a little bit more feedback from the DCC. And in the sport mode also the combustion engine is being activated to give me more spontaneous boost. The difference to that would be the eco mode, where it's then trying to consume less energy and less fuel. Also the throttle input is being adapted to that. So, and at the moment, when I'm just rather static on the throttle, we're driving all electric. And the final consumption of that vehicle, it's always the question, how often do you recharge? So at the moment it's 4 liters, but I mean, sometimes it's driving electric, sometimes using the combustion engine. So how can you really say something about the real consumption? It's hardly possible. It's really depending on how much energy are you using, when are you recharging, and so on. What's then the driving profile and so on. So for plug-in hybrid vehicles, it's really hard to say, definitely. But it's somehow a cool driving experience using this recuperation. Sometimes you also draw yourself back a little bit because you say, you want to rather drive in the electric mode, make a game of it. So, for example, especially when we're here now in some city neighborhoods, we also know that we're a little bit more silent, and we also don't have any local emissions, so that can be a good mix. And as soon as we get on the motorway, I can use the combustion engine once again then. So I've driven this car here at the launch in Amsterdam, I think it was 2014 or 2015, and was already quite convinced of it because I liked the combination of all of it. Again, I said earlier, you can discuss if the PHEVs are really very useful. You can say both. You can say they combine the best of both technologies, but you can also say they combine the disadvantages of both technologies. And actually both arguments are true. So I think it rather depends on your personal situations, how you are using the PHEV, and if it really makes sense for you. But here now also, although it's getting a little bit narrow, you're still feeling quite good and confident with the Passat. It's such a nice and smooth ride, and the GTE makes it even nicer and even smoother. So I can just support that. We can also drive this electric battery just empty for you and see how that goes then. It was not entirely totally filled up when we got the vehicle here, but let's say like 80% or something it was charged, so we can also then later say how much effective electric range it had so far. Now we're getting also a little bit more speed, where I can also show the GTE boost. So I'm activating the GTE boost, and with the acceleration figure is somewhat more than 7 seconds to 100 kilometers or 62 miles an hour, and that's comparable with the 190 horsepower variants of the diesel or the petrol engine or so. So here there's also a nice task, 50 kilometers to 120. Let's say we go at the outside of this corner, because at the moment it's a little bit uphill. That would not be really very realistic to test it really. So I go 250, there's no one coming from behind by far, and now let's accelerate it out together with this GTE boost. Yep, that's it, 120, and this was quite decent. Holger's also satisfied.
Impressive.
Yeah, you've probably seen that. I mean, I wasn't in the sport mode or something. I can retry that too, being in the sport mode and in the GTE mode, because what the GTE mode did, you in the first second you had this electric boost, and this would usually be the situation where you have, let's go to the D and Sport, so and now the GTE, now again, and watch what the car does. There it was, see? So first the electric boost, and then the combustion engine sets in, and the time where the combustion engine prepares itself, or maybe like takes a gear down to be more spontaneous, that second is covered by the GTE boost, by the electric boost, and that then gives you a nice drive forward. Whereas when we just have the combustion engine, it would just, it's not a turbo lag. It's more like a shifting lag. We had that subject before. Definitely very interesting. By the way, if you use the gear selector here, the middle one, so either when you're in the D mode, you just go forward and the car rolls rather, just a little recharge depending on situation. When B mode is biggest recuperation, for example, when you know that you're going downhill for a longer time. So, and now we'll empty that GTE, so to say, the battery, and see how far we can get with that. I'll also go to this E mode, where I really prefer to stay in electric mode, drive it all empty, see how far that goes, and then also how will the car behave when it's completely empty. And from the normal pure electric driving, what will then happen? So now I depleted the battery and I really scored some 40 kilometers. And remember, we had 80% battery status as we started. So when we think about 100%, that would have been then 50 kilometers, and that comes pretty close to the 55 official electric range they give. So well done as for that respect. And definitely a significant increase if you think about the pre-facelift Passat. So that really makes a big difference. And when you then just drive on the 1.4 liter turbo petrol engine, we can score a minimum consumption with cruise control on the motorway of about 6 liters on 100 kilometers. So something more than 30 mpg US and more than 40 mpg UK. And that is also similar if you use any other single combustion engine from their lineup here, from the petrol side. So you can also drive it just as a normal petrol engine and won't make a big difference. Of course, the 1.4 liter TSI is one of the older ones, but then of course also a more refined one. Yet I'm a fan of a little bit more displacement if you just compare the petrol engines. So I would rather, if you just pick a petrol engine, rather pick the biggest displacement, but then with the lowest horsepower spec to save some money, and because it's still the same engine then. But you see, it still works also when the battery is depleted. And I mean, on the motorway it doesn't make any advantage then when you have the GTE and the battery is depleted. But if you then think about like going uphill and downhill and so on, then you would have the chance to gain back some battery status when you're going downhill by recuperation or regenerative braking, I also call it. And otherwise, when you're just with the combustion engine, it's lost, the power is lost. So you can gain back something, then it makes even more sense. And if you think about stop and go, then the GTE will also make somewhat sense, because you always get a little bit more power in the battery, then you give it away again, and so on. It goes back and forth, even if you do not recharge it. So yes, in a way, the GTE will still help you if the battery is depleted. We also made the experience with some other plug-in hybrid vehicles. But of course, it doesn't make the biggest sense then, because you're also carrying it around with you. But obviously, the weight difference does not make such a big difference on the pure combustion engine consumption. And now to our conclusion for today with the Passat Facelift. Well, in general, of course, it has relatively remained the same as a base vehicle, and it was already quite good if you look at this mid-size segment. It's definitely a premium vehicle, and to me also among the leading ones in this mid-size segment in a lot of different elements. It has a lot of style and class. Here the Alltrack also has this special crossover look, yes. Some new styles then are also with the facelift, as for the rims, also for the colors. This new front is actually totally fine, looks a little bit more in line, definitely also with the new current lineup they have. Also good that you now have some technology upgrades for the headlamps. On the interior, of course, infotainment, a lot has been done right there. You do not necessarily need to go for the top trim spec. As for the infotainment, you'll also be fine with the 8-inch screen, for example. You have a lot of more functionality, and also nice to have the wireless CarPlay right now. Also assistance systems, the upgrades we explained to you in the driving part is also pretty interesting, especially with the capacitive steering wheel. This is also what will be leading on to the transition from the normal self-driving to the autonomous driving. The car is actually, more interacting with you. Very interesting as for that. And overall, still a good use of space you have. You have a lot of space in the rear, and especially in the trunk. And that's also why this one here, as it is right now as a variant, so as the estate version, is also one of the most popular cars in Germany. Drivetrain wise, yes, a BMW 3 Series, or may I say a C-Class from this rear driven platform is sportier when you accelerate out of the corners. When you have the all-wheel drive, it will still remain rear-wheel biased with those Mercedes and BMWs. And if you think about the Audi and the VW, yeah, they feel a little bit less sporty as for this aspect. But if you leave the accelerating out of the corners at the side, the general handling and agility here with this vehicle, even with the Alltrack, is really great. So a nice handling, a good progressive steering feeling, I really like that. And you can still have a lot of fun in a sporty way, even if you go for a little bit higher Alltrack version, as we had, for example, here today. Well, with the GTE was a very interesting drive, because it is somehow always more interesting if you have those plug-in hybrid vehicles and you can use the recuperation, especially when you go down the hill. This was really cool to use, definitely. And you can also score some decent consumption figures. It always depends on the situation, of course. And it really depends on, it just makes sense if you can also recharge this car. So it is about your charging infrastructure at home or at work, and then it makes sense. Financially also, when you have some governmental benefits, for example, Germany is now a good example for that, because beginning with 2019, when you're using a fleet vehicle for your business, also in the private use, before that, you had to tax like 1% of the list price per month. Now it's 0.5 for electric vehicles and for plug-in hybrid vehicles. Therefore, in Germany, we will see a boost of plug-in hybrid and electric vehicles just from the tax standpoint, definitely. And of course, there are other countries who also have that program or had those programs in the past. And we also showed you here the RLine. The Sporty Pack also works very well for the car. But I think maybe the Alltrack is my favorite. What about the Alltrack, but in this very color? The green color for the Alltrack, by the way, is called bottle green. So, just from the green bottles, like the beer bottles or so on. It's a very interesting color, definitely, but maybe the moonstone here together with an Alltrack pack? Or, of course, a classic Thomas Blue. That would be my favorite. Yeah, but on the interior, I think it would work very well with the Alcantara RLine seats. Those ones look very nice. We've shown you those on several Golf R reviews, for example, already. And the Passat RLine here, how sporty it drives rather depends on the suspension you pick. I would really advise to go for the DCC, and then you can always vary it nevertheless, because you have a base suspension, sport suspension option, which is a non-adaptive one, and then the adaptive DCC. And it's definitely worth to go for that. And it was also interesting here, the diesel versus petrol comparison. So the diesel is actually the most fun engine to drive here. That is very surprising. But this bi-turbo diesel also consumes a lot of fuel for a diesel. It will still be a little bit lower in the consumption than the petrol engine. But since for the petrol engine today we had scored pretty good values, there's not such a big difference then from diesel to the petrol. And that again is the question, how often are you driving, how much power do you really need? The smaller engines for the Passat in general will also do just fine. probably I would at the moment go, if you think about the best price performance ratio, for one of the smallest 2-liter TSI engines as the best price performance. So, what do you think? I hope you also enjoyed the variation we've shown you here today. Please tune in next time and let's discuss this vehicle. Which one is your favorite Passat? Or would you rather go for an Audi A4, for Mercedes C-Class or the BMW 3 Series? Tell me and tune in next time.